We will be getting started shortly. I am Ken Briscoe, Product Marketing Manager here at ACS Technologies. Want to welcome you all to today's webinar. We are so excited that you are able to join us. There will be some folks joining the call, but in respect of your time, we want to make sure that we transition into what you came for, and that's to learn how to add the three keys to building a solid financial foundation for your church for 2025. Before I turn the presentation over to our bookkeeping expert, I just want to do a few housekeeping notes. Um, First, if you could just let us know who you are, what church or ministry you are with, your location, and then what role you play at your church or ministry. And I see some of you have already got started, and glad to see that. Uh, Also, as you are adding in your names and location, just a few other notes that I want to make sure that you are aware of. First, our Q&A feature. Um, you can see our Q&A feature down at the bottom. It has a question mark over the Q and the A. If you have questions during the webinar, please enter that question in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. This will allow us to make sure that we get all of your questions answered during the webinar. Some will be answered within the chat, excuse me, within the Q&A section, and others we will make sure that we answer during that Q&A period. Second, everyone's favorite question. Yes, we will be moving, yes, we will be recording, and you will receive that recording via email. And so you will be obviously able to share that recording with other co-workers who weren't able to make this call. And then last but not least, um, we want to make sure that you're able to follow us, and you can forward the slide, Josh. We want to make sure that you can follow us on social media so that you can stay abreast of everything that ACST has for you, from webinars to events and resources that will help you reach all of your ministry objectives. And with that, I will turn things over to Josh Henry, our head of bookkeeping here at ACST.
Thanks, Ken, and thanks everybody for joining us. Glad to have an opportunity. I swear that I'm not pastor counting right now. There is over 100 people in the webinar. So thank you all for being here and joining us today. Do want to spend a few minutes with you. This is the funnest part of my job. And has always been, is to see over 100 churches represented in one place from all over the country, and how we can come together and see all those things that we do from the big C church, those ways that we all are working together on the Great Commission, and doing things to help people experience and grow in their walk with the Lord. So let me get started. Ken already did allude to a few things that we have going. And I love seeing the responses in the chat of where you're at. That's great. Appreciate that. Appreciate seeing kind of the job roles and everything that people are coming from, and that's really helpful for me. Like most pastors, I can kind of adjust my presentation based on knowing who I'm talking to. So keep them coming. Let me know where we're at. I did see a couple questions in there, or at least one, maybe the same person asked it twice, about PowerPoints. I'd be happy to share it with you. Not real sure how helpful they will be, because and a lot of times I do my PowerPoints more as talking prompts for myself. But if it would be helpful for you, I'd be more than happy to share it with you as a PDF or whatever as well. So yeah, let's kind of get this ball rolling. Our January webinar, 3 keys to building a solid financial foundation for ministry growth in this new year. A couple things just to reiterate, if I could ask of you. If you're like me, I get distracted very easily. So if you don't mind, Turn off in other web browsers, any other applications you got going. I'd appreciate your attention. My promise in return to you is to get to the point and hopefully stay on point. I am a former pastor, so I will chase rabbits, but do want to make this informative for you, maybe thought provoking for you, and from we'll go from there. So my man Ken is monitoring the Q&A, also monitoring the chat. And I will be as well, but again, the whole distraction thing. But if you do have something that comes up, even while I'm on a point, feel free to throw that in the chat, throw that in the QA, and Ken will kind of let me know if we need to address it right now, or we will have some time at the very end to go through question and answer time. So with that being said, as most of you know, the new year always that time where we people want to talk about resolutions, and so I want to make sure that one of the things we are doing today is not talking resolutions. This is not a short term kind of thing. There is a reason why the second Friday of January is known as Quitting Friday, because that's about how long most resolutions last. But I will say, as you know, every year presents us an opportunity for a clear new starting point. We have the opportunity to take care of some things, and it is a distinct time to get moving forward. So also, let me ask you this. Many of you might be able to relate to this. When we talk about church finances, I'm going to live in a very broad, general place today. I'll use the word church finances. No, with that, I mean everything that goes along with the financial management of your church, all the way down from, what we're providing to you from ACS Technologies, probably in the software you're using, all the way up to the system, how we pay bills, how we manage, track, report, all that stuff. But most of you probably have realized this. In church finance world, it's kind of like the wild, wild west. There really is not a how-to guide on how to manage your finances from beginning to end. There's not a clear book that says, well, this is exactly how you do it, and if you do it this way, you'll be good. It is up to perception, experience, and somewhat of a folklore of what happens. Let me ask you this second part, the third piece, if any of you can relate to this, because you all have so much time with so little to do. I think that's a quote from Willy Wonka, if I'm not mistaken. But I think we can all admit, and if you can't relate to this and you have more time than you know what to do with, feel free to put it in the chat and tell us all how. But I think we all know that there is not enough time in the day. And you, in your role, I'm going to take a presumption as church treasurer, bookkeeper, finance person, pastor, whatever it is, there's a lot of demands on you when you show up to church. And so what we want to do, my goal for today is to provide encouragement and identify opportunities that exist to excel your ministry and growth for 2025. Ultimately, show you some ways that we can help free your team to do better ministry. So let me take one step back. I'll tell you a story as we're talking about what the time of doing your job. And this is a real story of a church that we had. It comes into the whole, you guys as in your roles at church probably understand the other duties as assigned as it might exist on your job description. And the story, we had a church come to us. They had a lady who had been doing the books for years and years and years. She was a staff member, and she was ready to retire and move on. So the stewardship team kind of put together a job description of what her title was bookkeeper. And so the finance team put together a job description on what they would look for to help replace her, and had a guy that was actually an accountant, and he was trying to build an accounting practice, and said, you know what, I could do this part-time job to help supplement some income while I'm growing my practice. Sounds like a great fit. However, uh, the story I heard, and you may or may not get a kick out of this, but someone came, and the guy's name is Tim, came to Tim and said, "Hey Tim, we need a sign for the ice maker." And Tim looked at him and said, "Why are you asking me to make you a sign for the ice maker?" And the guy said, "Well, we always ask Betty that if we needed a sign, she would make us a sign. I need a sign that reminds people to not put the ice scoop in the ice maker." And I think that's a very clear story of all those things that we don't realize that fall on your plate as a church staff member or even as a volunteer. Of those things that go above and beyond or outside a typical scope of what you might be doing. So I'm hoping that after today, we can kind of sit down and help you identify some ways to at least get that discussion started for your church. So, who am I and why are you listening to me? My name is Josh Henry. As I've said, I founded and built a company called Simplify Church, started 17 years ago after I served as pastor of a local church. One of the things I noticed was, to my point of what I said about the wild, wild west, there is not a how-to guide on how to manage finances and how to manage bookkeeping and everything for your church. We most recently we were acquired by ACS Technologies, and now I am here working through that to help develop a bookkeeping, accounting, payroll service designed to serve our ministry partners. Um, we can talk more about that down the road, but that really is where I am and what I do now on a day-to-day basis. The best part of my job is this right here. I get to talk to lots of churches from all over the country, and we get to talk church, we get to talk finance, we get to talk all those things on how we can do ministry better. So let me tell you my story a little bit more. And one of the things I've identified, I have a term that I have coined called the Monday morning church. There's a good chance I don't have to define that for many of you. This is that side of church that your average person sitting in the pew has no idea exists. It's that little small business that we have to operate, that we have to keep going, that nobody really wants to talk about. And as I said already, there's not a how-to guide. And this is also where if you talk to 5 CPAs about how to do church accounting, you're probably going to get 8 different opinions on a correct way. So but what we want to do is help churches identify how the foundation of the financial system works and sets the stage for ministry growth. So, with that said, let me just go ahead and dive into why we're here. Key number 1, can your team, leadership, or a typical attender to your church articulate the mission and vision of your ministry? I realize that's a rhetorical question, but at the same time, it is something you want to think about. The, the having a clear mission and vision is crucial for your ministry. And don't just trust me. I mean, it's biblical. Where there is no vision, people perish. We as pastors, as church leaders, and everybody who's here have a mandate that we help people get to the next step in their faith, in their walk with the Lord. That's kind of why we're here ultimately. Now, we each serve a different role in that process of the church, but nonetheless, it's all the same of what we're doing to get going. I shouldn't have to illustrate this too much, but I'm going to do it. If you don't have a map to your destination, you will be lost. Let me ask you this. How many people have called the church office asking where your church location is? And I'm going to bet you 99% of the time, the first question you have to ask them is, where are you starting from? If we don't know where you're starting from, we have no way to know where we're going. And that is why having a clear vision of a destination helps us get there. So, what does a clear ministry vision give, and how does that impact our ministry? Well, first and foremost, as most of us are aware, it helps us make budget decisions. Now, what I mean by that is that's budget decisions all the way from building and developing your budget all the way to managing the budget throughout the year when we are seeing the actuals versus budget in our reporting and what we're doing. So we know that what we expected to happen is what's happening. Let me tell you a story here. Well, let's just say you have a budget amount for cookies for the preschoolers. And we get to 4 months into the year and we realize that we're 8 months of spending into the budget for cookies for the preschoolers. Well, we can make 2 thoughts at that point. One, are we buying enough cookies for the preschoolers, or are we throwing a lot away and overspending? That's one decision we have to make. The second decision that we could look at from that is to say, man, we're spending a lot of money on cookies for the preschoolers. Well, you know what? We've got a lot of preschoolers coming to our ministry. Well, preschoolers don't usually come to church without parents. Well, if we're reaching preschoolers, chances are we're reaching parents. And if we're doing a good thing in our preschool ministry, maybe we need to double down and spend more to reach more families for our church. So there's a free one for you. But making budget decisions can clearly be affected by having a clear mission and vision. The other thing that does is it enables us to throw the budget under the bus. So you don't have to be the bad person when someone comes to you with a ministry idea that does not fit where you're going as a ministry. You can say, "Ah, we just don't have the budget related for that." And it doesn't have to be you personally saying no, even though you probably know it's a bad idea to do. Secondly, a clear vision gives us ministry clarity. It also enhances your leadership. If you've got a clear direction, a clear vision, people want to follow leaders. People want to go in the direction that someone can excite them about where we're headed. Um, Having a clear vision does that, makes your job of leadership easier by having a clear vision. I would contend a clear ministry vision increases generosity in your church. People want to be a part of something. People want to contribute. The key that we have as ministry leaders, and this is more for your pastors, but it goes all the way down to what we're doing as staff members, church leaders, to say we want people to understand that their giving equals ministry happening. So when I give, the church uses that money and they can use that to do ministry, and it also helps us increase generosity, because if I can look at the budget and I can understand what the church is budgeting their money on, then I feel confident that they will be good stewards of the money that I'm going to give. You all know this. I'm not telling you any secrets. Giving in churches right now is hard. And we've gotten into a generation that's lost the concept of tithing. If you look at your reports, you know it's definitely probably more like the 90-10 rule now, not the 80-20 anymore, where 10% of the people actually give to your church and what's happening. So I could do an entire webinar on how to increase generosity and the effects of that for your ministry. But I'm going to leave it there, that having a clear vision will increase generosity for your church. And finally, here, the last part of a clear mission and vision is people retention. How many of you are concerned about the back door of your church, meaning the people that leave? It can be hurtful. It's sad. Unfortunately, you look at the ministry down the street is doing a little bit more differently, whatever, and we've got people going there. I would contend by telling people where you're going, clearly articulating that vision, will help you with retaining people at your church. So what next? Action step for this one. Here's an action step for you. If you don't have it already, or if you do, let's clarify the vision plan for 2025 and beyond. And then secondly to that, let's articulate that. Let's make the vision of your church part of your DNA. Put it on the walls, put it on your bulletins, put it on your website. Everything you do shares with a new person to your church. Hey, just so you know, we'd love for you to be part of our family. We'd love you to be part of what we're doing here, and here's where we're going. I would contend to you that will make your ministry more successful in doing that. Let's get on to a second key. Do you understand your financial system? And again, this is what I've already alluded to. Um, uh, this financial system is more than software. We're very grateful for every one of you being a part of our family here at ACS Technologies, and allowing us to be a part of your ministry and what we're able to offer you from a software standpoint. But the financial system extends beyond just software. It's a big deal, of course, and we will talk about that. But it also relates to how and who is utilizing that software and the processes that go into that. Um, be very careful as I go through this, because I might step on some toes, and I apologize in advance, but it is definitely something we need to discuss. First part is, are you confident the person doing your bookkeeping really knows what they're doing? Uh, or if you are the bookkeeper, are you confident that you know what you're doing? I talk to bookkeepers and pastors and everybody, you know, almost 100 a month, we'll say. And it is overwhelming how many people, and this is not in a way that we're trying to speak negatively, that that person's not smart or anything, but it's just one of those things that a lot of times we throw people into the bookkeeper position in church because they're breathing, not necessarily because they're able to do this or they have experience in doing it. But your financial system and understanding your financial system also goes along with having confidence in who's managing it. Do you know how your financial system relates directly to sex? I've already started pointing this out in budgeting, in some of the things that we're doing as we have the plans in place. But managing your finances is directly related to ministry success. I don't have to tell you this. If you run out of money, you're closing your doors. I mean, that's the obvious thing here. There are so many ways in managing your financial system that goes to the mission, vision, and what you're doing as a ministry that will help you succeed as we move forward. Just to repeat it again, does your budget reflect your mission and vision? If a newcomer came to your church, if you shared with me your budget for your church, would I be able to see and identify your mission and vision? This helps because you put your money where your mouth is. If I'm putting my if I look at my budget, I can see where the priorities of that church are and what they're doing as it relates to what they think or say or express that they want to do. Finally, here's a scary question for many of you. If your financial person left today, where would that leave your ministry? If the person that knows where it's at, knows how to use the system, knows where the check stock lives in the office, if that person left, where would you be? So I've been doing a lot of talking. I realize we're not going to unmute everybody, but this is a point for let's do some audience interaction. I want to know at your church. I know many of you are put treasurer, bookkeeper, things like that, but put in the chat for me, if you would, while we're moving through here, who is handling the finances? What does that look like? What I'm going for here is volunteer. I'm a volunteer. I'm paid staff. I'm full-time paid staff. I'm part-time paid staff. Who handles the nuts and bolts of your financial system at your church? Put that in the chat if you don't mind for me. Look at that. First three volunteers. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Oh, somebody typed a novel here. Hang on. What's that? Okay. It's scrolling. Very cool. Well, like I said, we all have similar ways that we're handling the finances in the church. But as you can see, and I mean, Ken, you can add it up if you want to. I don't think I'm going to, but I'm just going to scroll through here. And there's an overwhelming majority that is part-time or volunteer. Um, so thanks for doing that. Appreciate that. Kind of helps me kind of see what's going on and where your church is at. And it's not something that I wasn't expecting either. So let's talk about the action step here for number 2. Prioritize establishing the foundation of your financial system for 2025. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that is let's get it documented. Let's get things put down. Let's create a playbook. Business world would call it an SOP, a standard operating procedure. But let's commit in 2025 to putting together a playbook of how we write a check. Let's put a playbook on how we enter a donation and take it out of our online giving platform and post that to our ledger. Let's have those done step by step. Now, for those of you that do this as a job, don't live in fear that you by doing this you will lose your job. If anything, this is going to relieve some stress for you in how you're doing things so that it's documented. Those of you that attended the previous webinar I did back in October, I present a phrase, and this is another one of those phrases that I've coined. Most churches operate on a Frankenstein financial system. What I mean by that is the system has grown over the years, And it's kind of like that telephone game we used to play when we were kids. If you've ever done that, where you sat in a circle and had about 10 people, and the teacher told the first person a story, whispered it in their ear. That person took that story and whispered it into the next person's ear, and we went around the circle. But by the end of the time that you get to the 10th person, the story was nowhere near the story that it started as. And my experience, that's how church finances end up, is that we've got this designated fund out there, and we go to ask what it was for. Nobody knows why or when or how or what that money was actually raised for. So anyway, I will digress off of that. But I would tell you, prioritizing this foundation is crucial for 25. And what a good time to start that here at the beginning of the year. Next one, key number three. And this is a phrase a friend of mine coined that I can't take credit for, but I love it. If better is possible, good is not enough. Let me ask you, are things in your church being done with excellence, or are we falling victim to good enough? I would say in what we are called to do, our calling as church leaders, not only are we answering to people, but we're serving the Lord. We're serving the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. We're serving our Lord and Savior, the man who rescued us from sin and gives us eternal life. And part of our worship can be done through our serving of what we're doing in the finances of the church. And we should be doing that to the best of our abilities and knowing that is being done with excellence. Let me ask you this. Are you confident your payroll is being handled correctly? Now, even if you're using a third-party system, the ADPs, Paychecks, Gustos, you name it, throw it in here. Even if you're using those services, there's a good chance you're not handling your church payroll correctly, primarily because, as many of you know, pastors have a weird way of getting paid and have a weird way that their pay needs to be structured. I'm not going to go into all the details there just because there's so many people here. But just so you know, your pastor being paid as a W 2 employee has a different structure than any other W 2 employee you might have. I meant to put it here. I just realized I forgot to put it in the presentation, but write this down. If you ever want some bedtime go to sleep reading material, Google IRS publication 517, 517. That is the IRS's guidebook on ministerial pay. It pertains to licensed, commissioned, and or ordained individuals. So just know there is a different way to pay pastors. And oh, by the way, a lot of churches want to say, oh yeah, pastor gets paid differently, but we don't like that. We want to help our pastor, so we're going to do this separately or differently. And just know that is a recipe for disaster, but also goes back to that doing things with excellence. And I would say part of being excellent is being above reproach and doing it the way it's supposed to be done for that. Do you have flexible checks and balances? Now, by flexible, I don't mean ways that people can get around it. What I do mean by that is that we don't lock down our checks and balances so that ministry cannot happen. What I contend, let's empower and enable ministry leaders through flexible accountability. What does that mean? Well, here's another way I may step on a toe or two. I was around a church one time, or had a story from a church that voted on every check that had to go out the door. You want to slow your ministry down, let's have that happening. Uh, you hire a pastor, you hire a bookkeeper, or or a treasurer, and people, finance staff, finance team, committee, group, whatever you want to call it, to make decisions for the church. The budget is the guide through which many of those decisions are made. Let's give our ministry leaders the ability to be big boys and big girls and make decisions based on the guidelines we've put in front of them. One of those is to have flexible accountability, which means there's flexibility in what they can do and the decisions they can make. However, there's accountability overseeing those decisions so they don't go crazy. so they don't go wild, so they don't take all the church's money and run with it. So anyway, all those things we could really talk about, but I would contend let's implement flexible checks and balances into our system so that we can continue to do ministry. I could share horror stories with you on how different churches do different things and what has been put in place. You guys know as well as I do from church world, we have a problem that presents itself many times our solution to that problem is to flip and go 180 degrees in the opposite direction. Uh, every policy you've ever seen made, whether it is for your local municipality, the government, your church, your business, your place of work, whatever that is, every policy that's put in place was put in place because somebody messed it up at some point in time. So if you find a ridiculous policy, ask for the story behind it because sometimes it's pretty fun. Anyway, we want to move 180 degrees in the opposite direction when 10 degrees would have fixed the problem. So I'll jump off that soapbox, but really, let's have ways that our ministry leaders can be ministry leaders and grow the church, knowing that they have guardrails in place to do it above reproach. Finally, do you know your numbers? And many pastors come here and will say, "Oh, I'm a pastor. I don't need to know the numbers. I don't want to know the finances." And I would contend the pastor is God's person that they put in place to lead your church, and leadership from that is putting things together so that we know what's happening. We know that we have a healthy giver donor base. We know that people are giving consistently. We know that the spending is happening and that spending is happening within budget parameters that we have done, and those budget parameters fit the vision of what we're doing. Hint, hint. But we want to know the numbers and have a plan to review those, and that's not just finance numbers. That's also metrics. What's your attendance? What do things look like for people? What is your giving per unit? What do those things look like for your church? And are those reflective of a healthy, growing ministry? Lastly, and I'm just going to reiterate, I've now managed to put it in all three keys. We need to have a vision-based budget. I just can't stress this enough. I see so many churches that just throw, I'm in enough church leader Facebook groups that I can answer this and say, too many people are saying, "Oh, send me your budget and I'll just take that template." Or do you have a template? And we're going to throw it in place. I would contend that is not how you want to run your ministry. Yes, there are some ways, there are some general guides and general ways we can start from a budget, but the overall budget needs to match a mission and vision for your church. Action step here. If any of this feels daunting, overwhelming, we do have a solution for you, and I would love to talk to you. So, any step of what we've talked about here in this presentation, I'm happy to have a time with you or set up a time, learn here, whatever you've got. We have a solution. I want to have a bookkeeping discovery call with your church today. So here's what we'll do. If you schedule a discovery call for before February 28th, can you believe we're already on the doorstep of February? It feels like January lasted about 3 days in my world. But anyway, if you schedule a discovery call with me, we will waive any setup fees to get you started if you come on board. I've got that URL there. The QR code will take you to the same place. You'll get a link to my calendar to find a time that is convenient for you, and what we can do to help you from that standpoint. I'd love to discuss more, share more, hear your story. I want to. Again, like I said, that's the best thing I get to do on a daily basis is talk to churches and hear from churches. So. No, I have talked a whole lot. I'm hoping we can use this to set your ministry up for success this year. I want to be here to help you. I'd love to guide, direct, give you some advice, whatever it is. If we want to chat, I'm going to open the floor up to questions. We'll leave the link up there. Ken will kind of be here to um, I don't know, what are you doing, Ken? Just be here to
Yeah.
kind of manage the
No.
questions as they come in, and
Yes.
absolutely thank you all for your attention.
So yes, if anyone has any questions about anything that Josh has shared at this time, we ask that you once again go to the Q&A section. You can see it denoted by the question mark over the Q&A. Enter in your question there, and we will take the time to answer your call. Excuse me, answer your question on the call. First question, actually, thank you. First question for you, Josh.
Yeah.
What exactly is the service you are offering?
Thank you. It looks like both questions are related, and great question. And thank you for calling me out for not mentioning that. So, absolutely, we provide a bookkeeping service, and the term I use, we can have our hands on anything that passes through your bank account. So we serve in a way that we can take the information you send us. That is one of the caveats, is that we need somebody on your end that can at least shoot a photo, open the mail, and tell us to pay the bill, what that comes down to. And so in that, we can take the information, enter it, apply it to the ledger, post it to the ledger, do everything that needs to happen to get that bill taken care of, get ready for the check to be printed. We will help you to track and manage credit, debit card payments, all of that that's going on, applying it to the budget, and making sure that uh, everything's being recorded correctly. We really reduce the need for anybody in-house to have any bookkeeping or accounting experience. We also do the bank reconciliation for you. So we'll go through, grab your bank statement, do everything that needs to be done to handle that, and have your reports ready for the end of the month for you. So that's a good overview. I'd love to go more detail in a discovery call. I don't mean to kind of lead that on or waste your time, but it is a way that we can do a complete service to you for your church.
All right. Next question for you, Josh. What does Simplified Church bookkeeping do? Do they help set up a plan for us, or do they do the actual bookkeeping work?
Yeah, yeah. Similarly, we do the work. We actually go in and kind of what I alluded to. We've created a way that I partner your church up with a virtual bookkeeper on my team, and they are yours to do the work for you. They're experts in church accounting, and so all those things that you may or may not have as expertise internally, we can do for you, so you can rest assured the finances are being taken care of.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
Next question. Is the setup necessary if we are already using ACS Realm?
Yeah, good question. If you're already in Realm, and that's kind of what we're getting to, we don't have a setup fee in place currently, but it is coming because there are some things that have to be done from the bookkeeping service to do that. But if you, it does make it a lot easier if you're an existing partner with us using one of the ACS technology softwares. So it will be eventually, but no, not right now.
Thank you. Um, Next question. This goes back to, I guess, the simplified church question. Does ACS offer bookkeeping services?
Yes. Yeah. That is my role. Is creating. We have a bookkeeping division business unit that serves ACST ministry partners.
All right. Next question for you, Josh. Will you help us set up will you help us set up our account structure?
Yeah, so we are actually building a solution right now. It's currently available to churches that are coming on board with our bookkeeping service, but we can help in that process, making sure the account is set up, making sure you've got what you need, and everything is, you know, again, my MO is simplify, so to make sure that everything's kind of put together right.
All right. Next question for you. Do you do a la carte services? Like if I have a sticky problem I don't know how to handle.
Uh, Chris, kind of sounds like a loaded question. So we're working on it. Really is kind of an all or nothing. As you probably know, bookkeeping and accounting really is one of those things where every little bit and piece kind of interacts with the others. And so feel free to email me and we can kind of talk through that. Josh H at acst.com. I'll put it in the chat here. And that way you'll have my email address. Feel free to reach out. I think I could put it in the chat, but um,
Okay.
and then you can just feel free to email me.
All right. Next question for you, Josh, from Ruby. Do you provide services for other finance systems beyond ACS?
Yeah, good question. So we can, but very limited. And by limited, I mean QuickBooks. So we do, but it typically is only in QuickBooks. The three that we're working with right now, well, I shouldn't say three. We are working with all ACST products, being Realm Accounting, ACS Financials, and Parish Data Systems. And then we can serve through a QuickBooks option as well. But generally, we're trying to get most of our folks to realize that Realm Accounting is probably the best one that's in the industry right now. Hey, Ken, I put my email address in the chat, and
Yeah.
I think it only went to hosts and panelists. So if you just make
Okay.
sure that it goes, I don't see an option for me to put it to everybody,
Yeah.
but
I'll make sure gets out to everyone.
yep. I'll take the next one while you're doing that from
Okay.
Emily. Do you already use existing GL and budgets? Do you use our server? Yes and yes. So we can just pick up with what you have in place. So it's not like we say, hey, here's our box. You need to fit into it. So we can take your chart of accounts, your budget, your ledger, everything. And yes, that is the beauty of the service through ACST is that we can use your existing software. And so we would just manage it for you and do that. But there I go with a pop up on my Slack talk about ADD. But yeah, Emily, we do use what you have in place. Um, I see the second one here. What is the fee structure? So we base our fees on the budget of your church. That's the starting point. And then we have a few little ways that we go in and out based on basically the number of bank accounts, number of cash asset accounts, I would call them, that you have available. So we base our fees from the budget primarily. So be happy if you just want to email me, we can start that conversation from that. So next one. Do you offer partial bookkeeping if our church wants to have our hands in some of it, or is it best to hand everything over to a virtual bookkeeper? Nikki, yeah, I mean, we would really want to define that scope in that we really can serve in a virtual way to do it all. But because of the beauty of the cloud-based software through Realm Accounting or ACS On Demand, we can kind of work together on it. There are still some things at the church that you can do. I mean, there's going to come that day where someone's standing at the church office needing a check, and we need to get that to them right then, and you guys can't wait for us to get in and prepare it for you. So there is a give and a take on what we do, but primarily we would want to talk through that with you in the relationship. So um, Natalie, the fee structure is not posted on the website. It is like I said, it is kind of based on your annual budget, and then we basically go in $50,000 increments. So 100,000, 100 to 150, 150 to 2, so on, until we hit about 800,000 of your annual budget, and then we go in $100,000 increments on our price points. Dana, we currently have Realm. Uh, does Discovery Call include help with navigating the system and getting set up? Is there an additional cost involved for that? Definitely would like to talk through that with you. I know you didn't intend to ask a loaded question, but that is kind of loaded. So I'd love to clarify and really understand the needs. and then definitely can give you the ideas if there would be any additional costs. Again, kind of going to if you are coming to be part of our bookkeeping service as a partner, then we would be more inclined to waive any fees that might go along with that setup process. Well, is your service billed monthly or setup fees only? Not real sure I'm totally following that. Yes, the bookkeeping service is a monthly subscription retainer fee that's billed monthly. And then, but oh, I understand why you're okay. But yes, down the road, probably in the next month or so, we are going to start applying a setup fee to the onboarding process of coming on board with bookkeeping services. So, good question. Thank you for helping me clarify that too. So, cool deal. So, hey, we're here at about 50 minutes. I want to be a good steward of everybody's time. Are there any other questions that you might have, or anybody that did ask a question that wants to ask a follow-up or a clarification? I'd be open for that as well. I'm happy to stick around for another 5-10 minutes or whatever needs be. Still got close to 100 people kind of living here in the room with it. So, Nikki, Josh H at acst.com. And that also is in the chat if you just want to copy and paste it. Ken was able to get it in there for everybody. So, all right. Final questions. What else do we got? You guys are taking it easy on me today. I'd also love to get some feedback. So if this kind of topic was helpful for you, if this general topic, like the general presentation going overview was good, cool. If there was something we should have gone deeper into, or if there are any ideas on what needs to happen or what we can what sorry, any ideas on future topics, other things we could do and provide. I'd be happy to chat through those or hear your feedback on those. Feel free to put it here in the comments and the questions, or put it into the uh, in the chat.
All right. All right. I think that's about brings us to a close. Um, as Josh said, if you have any more questions, we'll hang on for a few minutes, but that brings our presentation to a close. Thank you for your time. Again, this will be emailed to you, this recording will be emailed to you, so you will have this to share with your coworkers or ministry teams.
Hey Ken, I had two questions. One of them
Oh
I don't
yeah.
remember who it was, and I clicked off of it, so I apologize for that.
Oh
There
yes,
it
a
is.
few
Okay,
questions.
so Jerry, you're asking about comments on FASB 117. Definitely loaded question. I'm not real sure what to comment on that. So happy to talk in detail if you have any questions related to those financial statements. But yeah, sorry, I don't quite know how to answer that. So Barbara had asked, when will we receive the recording? Ken, you probably know the best answer to that.
Yeah, so you will receive an email tomorrow that will have the recording of this presentation. So tomorrow.
Lowell put, we started with a mom and pop giving program and everything has been bought, integrated, etc. Many years ago. I use QB also. Hey, yeah, Lowell, I'd love to kind of hear more about that, and if there's some ways to help, or that our services could come alongside and give you a robust giving platform. We can also serve you through QuickBooks. I started my company 17 years ago because QuickBooks was the option we had available. So we're pretty well versed in how to use QuickBooks for churches. And so happy to kind of chat more through that with you if you wanted to. Michelle, we will be getting started on a capital campaign to raise funds either for repairs or a new build. Any thoughts or direction for that? Well, yeah, probably more than I could say here real succinctly, Michelle. So shoot me an email, and I can. I guess I'm curious if you're looking for direction as to like who to use to help manage a capital campaign, or just how to do the capital campaign in general. So shoot me an email. We can talk about that for sure. Lowell, I subscribe to Church Law and Tax Report. Yes, yes, definitely. They do a great. Charles Hammer is probably the expert in all things church law and tax. So yeah, it's always a good resource to have. So, all right, still 50 people. I mean, 50 questions. Bring them on. Bring them on. We'll shut down here in the next 2 to 3 if we don't get any final questions. So. Again, thank you all for those of you that are still here, thank you for your time and attention and attendance, and greatly appreciate it. It's really encouraging to have that many people kind of show up. So, final call for questions. Josh H at acst.com is not sending for me. Is it getting kicked back to you, Phil? Maybe try doing it. I mean, well, you did put it in acst.com. Yeah. Huh. Um, what email platform are you using, Phil? Hmm. Well, ours are Gmail too. What's the message? Oh, delete that little bullet item right in front of it, and make sure there's no spaces ahead of my name. That might be if that is in there, just go ahead and retype it, and just make sure you don't have any spaces either way. Richard Hammer. Yes. Sorry, I did. Thanks, Drew. Too many names to remember, man. I tell you. Cool.
Great.
All right. Well, with that, we'll call that a day. Thanks everybody for being here. Ken, let's go ahead and we'll start getting stuff shut down, brother.
All right. Thank you, guys.